14 years later, I stood in General Dostum's court and stared at his reindeer and tried not to act surprised. The reindeer seemed confused as to why he was there, and I must have seemed confused as to why the reindeer was there. But there he was, at least 200 pounds, one antler broken, thrashing against the rope around his face. I stepped out of the way to avoid getting impaled by an antler. As an attendant struggled to hold on to the other end of the rope, Dostum indicated to the deer with both hands, like Vanna White presenting a Wheel of Fortune prize. He beamed at the deer and then at me, a magnanimous smile that said, "See, I brought a reindeer," as if this was the most normal way in the world to arrive at an interview. I pursed my lips for a moment. He was waiting for a response. "That's a beautiful animal, General," I said. You choose your words carefully in the courts of warlords, especially when they're flanked by men with M4 carbines slung across their chests. Plus, the antlers. It was August 2016. General Dostum had by then gone from anti-American warlord to American proxy fighter to vice president of Afghanistan. He was a living embodiment of the militarization of American foreign policy, a warlord who had, off the back of collaboration with the Americans, ascended to the very top of the new power structures created in his country by the United States. That night in 2016, we were in the vice presidential palace in Kabul, which was like a cross between a James Bond villain's lair and Liberace's dressing room. Dostum had carpeted the entire place in live grass, and as far as I could tell, wherever one could possibly fit a plant, he had attempted to do so. Hundreds of trees and bushes in mismatched terracotta planters crowded the place. Festooning every branch was a wild array of Christmas tree lights, like someone had cleared out a section of Home Depot. There were the big bulbs that flashed in sequence, and the fake icicles that illuminated in a dripping pattern, and, everywhere, yards of rainbow rope light. You had to push through the foliage and lights to reach the seating area in the center, a dais with a mismatched collection of rattan patio chairs and leatherette lazy-boy recliners. Vases of fake flowers and Hummel-style porcelain statuettes of horseback soldiers stood on Louis XIV-style end tables. In a wicker cage, a fat chukar partridge clucked mournfully. There was, of course, a giant tank full of sharks. This was warlord chic. Here is how one journalist described General Dostum. Over 6 feet tall with bulging biceps, a bear of a man with a gruff laugh which, some Uzbeks swear, has on occasion frightened people to death. That reporter, Rashid Ahmed, claimed that shortly before he visited Dostum's stronghold in northern Afghanistan, Dostum tied a soldier who had been caught stealing to the tracks of a Russian tank and drove him around until his body was reduced to a meat slurry, a charge Dostum later denied. But Dostum was also, he reminded me frequently, an animal lover. "When people bring some birds or some sheep or some animals to be slaughtered to eat, I tell them, 'Please, take it away, take it. I don't want to kill this bird, this sheep, or this goat,'" he said, visibly moved. General Dostum was not an animal lover in the way you or I might be a cat person or a dog person. He was an animal lover as only a powerful Uzbek warlord could be, with a menagerie of hundreds of deer and horses and game birds. On at least one occasion on each day I spent with him, he would mention a horse or a deer being injured, and his eyes would fill with tears, and his lower lip would jut like a child who had just been told the family hamster went on to a better place. "It is very rare that I agree to give any interview for a journalist," General Dostum said in Uzbek through an advisor/translator doing his best. A lot of the Uzbek language is formed in the back of the throat, and Dostum's delivery was particularly deep and throaty. He spoke in a lazy, slightly slurred drawl, like a tape played at half speed. "I have friends who are saying to do interview, and so far I never agree to," he continued. His comments to the press had been limited to rare quotes given over the phone, and he'd sat down only with academics and adventurers who'd transcribed his legends into rapt panegyrics. "You're a good fellow from a friendly country, therefore I agreed to accept you here today," Dostum said, his eyes flicking up and down my person, regarding me with some suspicion. But I had not come to tell the tale of General Dostum, or at least not in the way General Dostum seemed terrifyingly assured I would. I had come to Dostum's grass-carpeted palace in Kabul to ask about an unmarked grave at the ends of the earth.